The moon is in the 50s for us, giving us the full 2750 channel. It's the closest celestial body to Earth and exerts a gravitational influence on liquids. If you've seen, I actually do forecasts and I immediately get this clip, which I instantly share on my page about how magnificent the moon is and how important it is in our lives. The moon's slogan goes like this: life is growth and growth is always a gravitational process. Say thank you to me, says the moon. Thank you, moon. We really are grateful. Well, these are the 50th gates. The moon is in the 50th gates in our annual program, in the full 2750 channel, in the 6th line, in detriment. Let's read. The 50th gates are the gates of values. And in the 6th line, the theme is leadership. And the detriment is innate capriciousness, which, when in a position of power, can sometimes alienate or offend others, and thus affect overall productivity. The strength to uphold one's own values, but at the expense of harmonious relationships, unlike in exaltation, where the 6th line upholds its own values, but not at the cost of relationships with others. I won't explain this position right now because later on I'll give a formula, and with that formula it will become perfectly clear. But also, the moon is not only in this position, the moon also gives us the 59.4 program, and all of this connects directly to the sacral as well. This is a very important position because it is what gives weight to the 27 to 50 channel from the sacral side, and let's see what position we have there. The 59th gate, the great gate of breaking down barriers, the great gate of opening another person up to intimate relationships. The full channel is endlessly engaged in this, but even the 59th gate without the 6th gate also does this quite successfully. However, not with as good results as the full channel. The full channel can open up anyone when in a good mood and can achieve anything from another person when in a good mood. So the 59th on their own are not as successful, but nevertheless, it is a great power to penetrate, to break down barriers, to move into intimacy with another person. How else would you make children? You have to get close somehow. That is, you have to get closer than 20 centimeters. And for that, you need strength. There has to be someone who has that strength. And the 59th gate always has this strength. So let's read the line. The 4th line is brotherhood, sisterhood, a magnificent line. In exaltation, it is just 100% nine-centered. The breaking down of barriers on the path to union for the establishment of universal alliance. Strength drawn from non-sexual intimacy. This is the breaking down of barriers to establish emotional intimacy, for friendship to be close, and it doesn't necessarily have to be through sex. But the detriment is quite the opposite, an intellectual understanding that emotional intimacy today is something much more important than sex. But here, the idea and understanding of this cannot restrain sexual desire. That is the detriment of the 4th line of gate 59. So, for some reason, this line and these gates are given to us in the annual program, and we will look at why. So let's look at the lunar nodes. This is actually something absolutely not explosively connected to the moon, because these are not material points. They are the points where the moon's orbit crosses the plane of the ecliptic, where the moon crosses the plane of the ecliptic in its orbit. We call those the lunar nodes. These are the only places through which we are programmed, the points through which the stars program us. Because all streams of neutrinos, even those from the sun, do not reach us directly. They are all filtered by the planets. And during this filtering, the frequency of the neutrino streams, the information carried by the neutrino streams from the stars, decreases. Probably because otherwise we wouldn't be able to perceive it. But there are 4 positions: the lunar nodes from the perspective of personality, and the lunar nodes from the perspective of design, from the black side and from the red side. These tell us that in these positions we receive programming from the stars directly. because the lunar nodes are immaterial. So since we're looking at this block, the 18th is also in this block in a defined spleen, and it's defined by the south node from the red program side. This is the work on what is spoiled in the third line, which is called the zealot, and sounds like an energetic obsession with cleaning the house. So this is again about upheavals. I just blurted that out, but maybe I didn't just blurt it out. In exaltation, we have the elimination of old forms at an acceptable price. In detriment, we have the elimination of old forms in a harsh way. And moving on, we still need to look at the 28th gate of the program and the 9th gate of the program. Let's look at the 28th because it's really, really important, even though it's there every year. It's important, really important, especially since this year it's in a defined spleen, which gives a certain quality to the entire 2750 channel. So let's take a look. Sun in 28.3. The sun is the most important position, always, everywhere. It's the most important position. We get 70% of programming from the sun, 70%, 70%. That's why I wrote that the sun's slogan is essence that fills the form. And essence that fills the form is always the light that illuminates the form. So you can see what kind of form it is. Let me remind you, for those who don't know, the 28th gate, the gate of the player, is individual. It's individuality that's even willing to risk its own life. If there is awareness about what can be gained, and here, there is always awareness regarding the achievement of the goal. It's always a player. Of course, it's very important for the player to have energy for this game because the spleen is not a motor, no. That's why, for all those with the 28th gate, the 38th is extremely important in this life. The gates are expressed as a hexagram. Awareness that power and influence are fleeting. Life passes by. You have to find the things for which you need to realize exactly which things are worth fighting for, holding on to and exploring. Because life is very short, so short that there isn't time to play every game. There are a truly huge number of people, and I personally know many individuals with the 28th gate in my life. These were people who were genuine players, real dedicated players, and they spent an incredible amount of their valuable time playing these games. And I think that with the 28th gate, most of the people we currently find are sitting in this very specific situation, where all this extensive advertising for casinos and various virtual games is prevalent. And before, they used to primarily play slot machines, often for extended periods. The third line, which is the line of the cross, which now gives a certain quality to the channel, the full channel, sounds like unjustified risk, adventurism. And in exaltation, this is a calculated, conscious adventurism, which actually resembles conservatism more. A person won't take risks for nothing. No, why do that? But in detriment, it's clear that we play, we take risks, and naturally in detriment, we are guaranteed to lose. So there's always this question, when this cross stands every year and when the 28th comes, especially when it's in full aspect, I always have this question, always the crucial question, okay, there will indeed be a game this year, but will there be sufficient awareness, a deep understanding not to take any unnecessary risks at all? And every time I see that, no, there isn't enough. People in the world don't have enough of it. They wage their wars, they start these wars, they start these coups, they kill people. They think they're going to gain something, naturally for themselves. Well, let's immediately look at the sun from the personality side, from the black side. We've already looked at the red side, now let's look at the black side. Always, 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 always. Gate 41, always, always the first line. And we already know why, because 41 is the start codon in our DNA, the start codon, what we have inside. In the same way, everything in the universe begins, the process begins, the cycle always starts with gate 41. That's why the sun in gate 41, first line, is expressed as imagination, as making the very best out of very little. That's the exaltation. And the detriment is the tendency in understanding to assume, which can lead to overload. A hot head, haste in releasing emotion. Gate 41 is profoundly responsible for making absolutely sure that we do not waste any precious energy. And then, when the opportune moment truly comes to fully realize the profound experience, that this vital energy, which has been compressed and compressed so intensely like this, is then completely and utterly released for the sole and ultimate sake of gaining invaluable experience. If it weren't for this program of the 41st gate every year, I don't know. As humanity, we would have ended long ago. Because there is so much in this world that we have to go through that we would have all just perished in these experiences. Because any experience is only 70%, or rather 30% safe and 70% unsafe. Any experience is much more likely to be inherently unsafe and frequently brings about so-called negative events or undesirable outcomes, rather than the complete opposite. So we really need to restrain our energy, not to rush into this or that, but to direct it only toward truly important experiences, the ones we go through and gain some meaning about life, so that our consciousness expands, so that we become wise. That is to say, this is an abstract circuit. And here the key word is always wisdom. So let's look at the 9th gates, which are the last ones we haven't covered in this section of the second part of our program. And here is Venus. Well, we remember Venus is sweet. So Venus is positioned in the 6th line of the 9th gate, the 9th gate of focus. An incredibly powerful sacral force to focus on something, to chip away at things detail by detail, detail by detail, detail by detail, detail by detail, until reaching the highest perfection. The joy that comes from accepting small rewards for small victories. The moon. So it doesn't matter, it is exalted. The power of the small nourishes the right perspective, detail by detail, detail by detail. We are always on the right path, as long as we don't skip or miss anything. And here we have a big sort of attunement in our program with our 62s in the 4th line. Remember, they're... What? In the 60s or in the 17s? Both. In the 62s, in the 4th line, we have asceticism and the need to set aside time for details. And in the 17S, you remember, even if it's boring, you still have to deal with the details. It's boring to sit and go through the forecast line by line, line by line. It's very boring. But it's much more interesting when someone sits down and goes, damn, fuck, this is such a year. It doesn't even matter what's actually going on. You won't understand anything anyway, but I'll tell you, this is that kind of year. Be afraid of it. Everything will be missed. Without the details, everything will be missed. There's no point in a forecast like that. It's boring, but you have to sit and look at it line by line. Only then, after going through all the programs right to the very end, can you really figure out what this year will be about as a whole. This year is all about the details, about not missing the details, that with any kind of preparation, no matter what it is, you need to check this and check that and find out what that's about. It's truly a year of details for us. Here is the complete formula. You can see it. In fact, we've already gone through and analyzed all of this. I'm trying to turn this into a coherent sentence. This is a program that effectively breaks through others' barriers, not with overt sexuality, but rather with genuine friendship, in order to bring new members into the tribe through conscious activity and dedicated care. About everyone who falls under the concept of my people, focused on accumulating material resources for the survival of my people and on obtaining information about where these resources can be found, and guided by an instinctive sense for values whose preservation will allow the community, the family, or, if possible, the country to survive under various circumstances, the specific nature of this instinct. This year, it will consist in the fact that every member of the tribe will adventurously try to play the role of a leader, possessing specific values that will allow everyone to survive together. Therefore, everyone else should at least listen and at most establish these values as the rules of the community together. And those who don't like these values can be firmly told to get lost because they hinder the community from moving forward in order to survive. Of course, this is a rather broad and general overview, an unrefined and somewhat preliminary understanding of the profound sixth line of the Wei Ching's 55th hexagram, but I have genuinely tried to carefully tie together the intricate meanings of all these individual lines, providing a cohesive interpretation in the channel and all around the surrounding channel, so that it would be entirely possible to fully understand what this particular block, this specific part of the overall program is truly about. It's clear that the center here is care. It's the activity of caring. But what kind of care this is, that's what we look at in all these lines we've gone through. 5-minute break. But there's just a little left. Let's sit a bit longer. Let's stay. So what's next for us? Next, we look at what we have left. All of this in the rectangles we've already covered. We still have Saturn left, the Saturn program. In the 63rd gate, both in black and in red, and this is an open head center. And we still have the nodes on the black side, the 25th and 46th. This is also in the open G center. Saturn is the program that ruled over the entire chakra world. If Pluto is our god, then Saturn was the god of our great-great-grandparents, great-grandmothers, great-great-great-grandfathers. No, great-great-great-grandmothers, great-great-great-great-great-grandmothers, and great-great-great-great-grandfathers. This program punished, that's how people interpreted it. It punished people by limiting their lifespan. 7 chakra people, in terms of their physical abilities, could easily live much longer than 30 years. The majority of Earth's population barely made it to 30 because of infections, wounds, hunting, wars, diseases, childbirth. All of this took lives very early. And people believe that this is God's punishment and that Saturn is responsible for it. The slogan of Saturn in our time, in our programs, is because our life cycle has long been determined not by Saturn, but by Uranus, and our god is Pluto. So Saturn's slogan is, I can no longer take your life as punishment, but I can still make things unpleasant for you. So what kind of unpleasantness can Saturn bring us in the annual program? Let's see. Gate 63 from the black side in the 6th line. Let me remind you, this is the center of mental pressure. These are gates related to the mental process. These are the gates of doubt. They are called that. The hexagram corresponding to these gates is very poetic. It's called after completion, which means that in the spiral of life, all endings are beginnings. And the 6th line goes like this. Here's the first. After my suspicion regarding 27.50, the presence of this channel in the program, I have this kind of suspicious attitude. So here's my first concrete example. Well, let's see. The 6th line is described as nostalgia. In exaltation, it's common sense to avoid turning past struggles into an obsession. But in its detriment, it's nostalgia for revolution, illogicality, and a potential obsession with old suspicions and doubts. Now, I will sum it all up in one concise formula, how the planet Saturn can potentially punish us this year. And the 4th line of the same 63rd gate, the second sounds like structuring. establishing broad frameworks through which achievement can not only expand and be shared with others, but also reward the contributions of others, while still maintaining control over the direction. But in its detriment, there's instability in achievement, which, in a position of power, leads to arrogance and a desire to keep others away from the center of power. It's as if it's all about the same thing. Isn't that strange? Isn't it strange that both in the sixth line and in the second line, it's all about some kind of control, some kind of power? There isn't a single unnecessary word in the I Ching. It might seem strange to us because, well, what does power have to do with it? The 63rd. It's about inspiration. It's about mental doubt regarding certain formulas. But actually, if we carefully remember that all those individuals who have ruled over us throughout the long course of history invariably possessed a keen intellect, and it was through this profound intellect that they consistently made crucial decisions about the very fate of their respective peoples, their beloved countries, their vast kingdoms, and so on. Then those in power also have a lot of doubts, and we know this. They are obsessed with doubts about which decision to make. Regarding the profound and significant fate of my beloved people, so yes, in the collective and shared experience of life, doubt is indeed a truly wonderful and invaluable gateway for actively engaging in the rigorous and systematic process of science. It is a crucial and essential gateway that effectively prevents us from blindly accepting certain established theories without critical examination, thereby allowing us to thoroughly question them and meticulously investigate in order to ultimately arrive at a precise, accurate, and verifiable mathematical formula. However, in the complexities of everyday life, doubts often tend to rule the day, and this is especially evident and strikingly apparent when we deal with powerful and influential presidents, esteemed kings, and prominent prime ministers. And in 2 lines, the word power is mentioned.